So I'll begin by creating a map of my own data and then browsing for that data. I do have a list of customers that I would like to map, and my match fields are listed. These are correct. I'm not going to get into that too much. And I will simply create this map of my customers using their address information. So now that I have this data on my map, I'm going to add some additional data, and I want to add some data for stores, so I can add data to this map by locating the map menu at the top of the screen and choosing Add Data to Map. I choose that stores sheet and go ahead and map that data as well. So I now have two different layers on this map. I have my customers as well as my stores, and I want to differentiate them from one another. So I'm going to first put some labels on my stores based upon their name. I'll go ahead and choose a different color so that they stand out. And I also want to change the style of these stores so that they stand out. So I'll choose a different symbol. Stores. So I want to use my customer. So if I customer data, I want to do this based on my stores. If I look at my store data, I do have a status field here that specifies if it's an existing store or a candidate store. And I want for Maptitude to quickly group those features together for me. I can do that by going to the selection menu in Maptitude and choosing Select by List, and then choosing that status field. So I'm just getting everything all set up and ready so that I can easily show you some of these new features. I now have a couple of different sets, candidate and existing. And I want to add some additional data to this map, and that is I want to see how many customers I have by each zip code boundary. So I'm all set up with my customers where they're actually located and my stores where they're located, if they're existing or candidates. And I now want to get a count of customers by zip code. This is a new feature in Maptitude, and that is the ability to create a shaded map on the existing map. So I'll again choose Add Data to a Map with that same customers file. And this time I'm going to select the option to show zip code boundaries with my data attached. And I'm going to create a color theme that will show me the amount of sales by zip code for the customers within each zip code. So I'm going to go ahead and click Finish. And so Maptitude uses this data for the existing map, and it is really nice integrated solution. So right now, these particular amounts are shown in green, and I'm going to hide some things. I'm just going to simplify this map a little bit by hiding the landmark areas and the water areas. And I also want to change the colors on this theme of zip codes so that they stand out a little bit more. And this is all just a matter of preference. So now that I have made this modification, I can see where my stores and customers are located and where my highest sales are based upon the depth of that green. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to start conducting an analysis of my existing stores and get an understanding of how many clients I have, how many customers I have within a 10-minute ring. I can do that with my Drive Time Rings tool. And I will use my existing layer, my stores, with those stores that exist. And I'm going to create one ring of 10 minutes. And I want those rings to be separate from one another. So rather than the combined information for all of those stores, each store will have its own separate ring. So I've asked Maptitude to create these rings for me. And that will be the first step in this process before I go on to calculating some demographics for those rings as well. So I'm going to execute each of these steps so that I'm able not only to see these drive time rings, but also that I'm able to get those demographics. So these boundaries are showing here in blue and purple and other various colors. They're not super bright. I certainly can change the colors if I want them to stand out a little bit more. Again, by changing the styles on that layer. So I might choose something that is a little bit more brilliant, have that stand out a little bit more. So now that I have these rings on the map, I want to calculate some demographics, but I want to specify and ask Maptitude to count the number of customers. So I'm going to choose my customers field from the feature count dropdown. And once I have done that, I'll go ahead and calculate my demographics. And so Maptitude creates a nice report. And in that report, I get the store name as well as all of the demographics. So this is another new feature, including that store name in the Drive Time Rings report, as well as a summary at the top, so that I can see for each store the information that I've requested is very clearly labeled. So I'm going to go ahead and go back into Maptitude, and I'm going to use the Save button to save my Drive Time Rings, and then close this toolbox. So now that I see what area is within 10 minutes drive time from each of my existing stores, I want to take a look at where I might place some new stores. And I had some candidates, as you saw at the beginning. I'm going to use those with the new facility location tool, which is found under the analysis menu as facility location. And I'm going to use that tool to help me to determine what of those candidates may be the best choice. So I'm going to use my customers data. And for my stores, I'm going to use the existing set and the candidate set. I want the fastest route. And I only want one new facility. And this will be based upon the best overall service value. So after entering my parameters for determining where my new facility will be located, Maptitude begins analyzing those stores within the parameters that I've set. And the new facility is shown with a green check mark. So I'm just going to hide this 5-digit zip code layer so we can see this a little bit better. And so the new facility has that green check mark so that I can easily see where it is located. And go ahead and zoom to that here as well. so that we can better see it. So it's this store 1. We have a lot of data on this map, so I just wanted to make sure that you could see where it is. So it's located in the southwestern portion where there are customers, but there was no existing store. So I'm going to go ahead and save this map so we can go on to looking at some of our other new features. And I'm going to close this as well. So I have a MapPoint file that I'm going to use for the next part of this. So I'm going to change my files of type to MapPoint and choose that MapPoint file. And this has a series of waypoints that I'm going to use for mapping. And I know that this is being a little slow, just reading the file. And so that file is going to pop up here in just a second. And once it does, I'll be able to select those waypoints as stops for a route. So the data that I have is now shown. And I have a choice. I actually have territory data and I have waypoint data. And I'm actually going to start, I did misspeak a moment ago, by creating these territories. So I'll choose only the custom territories layer, and Maptitude will launch the territory wizard. So when I click OK, I will start by creating a new folder for my MapPoint territory data to be extracted to. And Maptitude is going to import that territory data and open up the territory wizard so I can create these territories within Maptitude based upon the data that I had in MapPoint. So this is something that has existed already, but I did want to make sure and bring those territories in. So now that I have these territories displayed, I also want to bring in my waypoints from that same file. So I'm going to choose my file open. And actually, before I do that, I'm going to just stop for a second. We do have these routing and distance timetables, and I want to show you that information first. And what I'm actually interested in knowing is the distance from the center of each of these territories to one another. So I want to know how far each territory is from one another, and I want to use the territory name. This is to give me an idea of the travel time just to the central location. And this is another new feature that is in Maptitude 2018. So I'm going to base this on a 1200 minute time frame and also output this to Excel. So Maptitude is going to go through and find the time and distance between each of these 3 territories and one another. So I can see that I have the minutes and the distance for each unique pair. I do want to go ahead and add those waypoints, and I'm going to put those on the same map in Maptitude. So I will choose my MapPoint file again. And Maptitude's just loading that in. And this time in that routing manager, I'm going to uncheck the custom territories and this time use those waypoints with the routing manager. So in previous versions of Maptitude, we were not able to jump directly into the routing with waypoints, and that is another new feature in Maptitude 2018. So now that I have these waypoints imported, they automatically go into that routing manager, and I can see my directions. This is quite a large route with these waypoints. It goes over multiple days, and I can also create my report as I have been able to in previous versions of the software. And as our last thing that I want to hit on today is the ability to use two fields on a 3D theme. And we're going to use the same map with the county layer. And we're going to create a 3D theme based on that information. So when clicking the shortcut for the 3D theme, I'm going to start by selecting my population field. And I also want to use a second field, the daytime population. And I will choose that from my color field. So I'll go ahead and click OK. Maptitude uses those settings, and I get a nice prism map that includes the height from population and the colors based upon the daytime population. So I'm able to see where the areas are most populous and which areas have a higher daytime population as well. So those are the new features in Maptitude 2018. I'm thrilled that you were able to join me to talk about these.